prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, happy New Year's Eve. It's 6 p.m, you're watching GB News and I'm Dawn Neeson standing in for the lovely Michelle Dewberry. It's official, Arise Sir Sadiq, the Mayor of London, has been given a knighthood, but I'll be asking, is this a reward for failure? And newly released official files show Tony Blair's Labour government pushed on with plans to open the UK borders to Eastern Europe, despite warnings migration would soar. Was this one of the worst political miscalculations of all time? And ministers have been urged to get a grip after new data showed that public sector workers are 3 times more likely to take mental health sick days than private sector employees. But will they? We look ahead to 2025, yes, it's nearly here, and why next year promises plenty of political fireworks. All of that and much, much more to come. But first, let's get the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Japan, Australia and New Zealand were the first to ring in the new year with celebrations and fireworks displays, followed by Hong Kong and Taiwan, who in the last few hours celebrated the new year. And Thailand, Vietnam and Indonesia have also rung in the new year in the past hour. But as the world welcomes in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to severe weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread travel disruption. Fireworks displays in Newcastle, Blackpool and North Yorkshire have all been cancelled. Meanwhile, London's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display is going ahead this evening, despite weather concerns. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has received a knighthood in the New Year's Honours List, sparking fury among some amid his controversial ULEZ scheme and London's spiralling crime rates. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure, as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said Londoners would be furious. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. In other news, Tony Blair's Labour government pushed on with plans to open the UK's borders to Eastern Europe, despite mounting concerns from senior ministers. That's according to newly released official files. The National Archives has published Cabinet Office files from 2003 to 2004, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. The documents revealed the issue of immigration was at the top of the agenda, with senior ministers urging the then Prime Minister to delay granting employment rights to Eastern and Central European workers when the EU expanded in 2004. But Mr Blair's government went ahead with the plans despite the warnings. New Year's Eve revellers in Wales are being urged to drink sensibly, while ambulance chiefs have asked people only to call 999 in the case of an emergency to help reduce pressure on services across the country. In Wales, the service said there were more than 340 calls waiting to be answered when the incident was declared last night. Meanwhile, Walsall Healthcare NHS Trust in the West Midlands declared a critical incident due to increased numbers of patients seeking hospital care for respiratory illnesses. The Association of Ambulance Chief Executives said teams are under severe pressure due to the time of year and high levels of COVID-19, norovirus and flu. And Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79. It comes 2 months after the radio presenter called time on his 58-year career because of ill health. DJ Bob Harris, who took over BBC Radio 2's Sound of the 70s show after Walker's retirement, announced his former colleague's death live on the station today. Tim Davie, the BBC's Director-General, said, "We are deeply saddened by the news of Johnny's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends, as well as everyone at Radio 2. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, and a very happy New Year's Eve to you. Hope you're having a lovely evening out there. Joining me until 7 is my wonderful panel tonight, Ben Habib, former Reform UK co-leader, and Paul Richards, former Labour advisor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on a special night and looking so smart as well. Good to have your company. Now, this show is all about you, though. It's not about us. So the most important thing to do on this show, remember, is get your views coming in. And you do that very easily at gbnews.com/your say. It's all about you, remember. So get those views coming in now, and we'll get through as many as we can, because we've got a cracking show and there's lots to talk about. Now, how are you feeling about this one? There's been a furious backlash to London Mayor Sadiq Khan receiving a knighthood in the New Year's honours list, pointing to spiralling knife crime and the much-hated ULEZ expansion that has hammered the working classes. So has Khan been rewarded for failure? Ben Habib and Paul Richards are going to debate this one now. New Year's honours out today. Ben, I can see from the look on your face which way this one is going to go. Do you think Sir Sadiq Khan has got a certain ring to it, Ben?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what that ring is, but I did a tweet earlier on today saying that I wasn't shocked by his knighthood. After all, Tony Blair got a knighthood. And Tony Blair was, in my view, guilty of not just being an awful Prime Minister and doing huge to this country. He launched what I would call an illegal war and is guilty of crimes against humanity. We all naturally are worried about the death toll in Gaza, but the death toll that the United States and the United Kingdom jointly delivered in Iraq on an illegal premise that they had weapons that they could get to the United Kingdom within 45 minutes was absolutely horrendous. I think it was pushing 1 million people. So we shouldn't be surprised when someone who hasn't actually done anything particularly remarkable is given a knighthood. I would say Sadiq Khan absolutely does not deserve one. Obviously, knife crime is up, as you mentioned, the ULEZ thing.
61% increase in knife crime.
61%. All crime is up. And I've got Martin Daubney gesticulating at me from behind the studio. Hi, Martin. You know, knife crime is up, ULEZ. But he got Imperial College to try. He tried to get Imperial College to falsify the information so he could implement ULEZ. He tries to force us down the tube, down into tubes, where the air quality is much worse than it is actually on the streets. as you say, ULEZ did massive damage to the working classes. But he's much worse than that, isn't he? Because leave aside his track record for a second. The thing that I think is so wrong about Sadiq Khan is the way that he plays identity politics all the time, the way he took the knee to BLM, set up a commission to decide which of our great statues in this country, in this capital, should come down. £200 million on that commission, by the way, saying things like immigrants built London, which is patently not true, putting out a photograph of a white family and saying this white family don't represent London.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things that he does, which for me add up, like I say about Keir Starmer, they add up. Oh, and by the way, going to the European Union behind the backs of the elected officials in the United Kingdom, undermining talks with the EU while we were trying to Brexit. That's also Sadiq Khan. This man is anti the United Kingdom. That's the only way I can describe it. He doesn't like our history. He doesn't like our people. He doesn't actually take his job seriously. And for any number of reasons, he should not have been given a knighthood.
Paul, there is a lot of controversy over this. A lot of people, you know, aren't keen, and you know, they're saying, name one thing that he has done that is good for London.
Well, there's a lot of people who are delighted by this news as well. He's a significant public figure. He's been elected 3 times. He's got the biggest mandate of any elected politician in the United Kingdom. And for that charge sheet that Ben has just reeled off, you know, Londoners have re-elected him time and time again.
There was only a 30% turnout in the vote. And
by the way, the guy that he beat, Sean Bailey, then got a seat in the House of Lords. So talk about rewarding failure. The Tories put that guy that lost the election into the Lords, and all Sadiq Khan has got is a knighthood. And by the way, so have lots of other people today. You know, there are all kinds of... The Mayor of Birmingham's got one as well. Are we talking about him? Why are we picking on Sadiq Khan?
Well, because I'm struggling to name one thing good that he's done for London. Tell me one thing that he has done good for London.
Well, I think, actually, history will judge him very fairly on cleaning up the air. I was in Morocco recently, in a city where the air was absolutely filthy, and you're sort of reminded that some cities around the world that don't have clean air are horrible to operate in, and actually London is cleaner, thanks to...
No, it isn't. London...
Well, it is, isn't it?
London was clean before the ULEZ zone was introduced. While the ULEZ debate was taking place, I was monitoring closely a map of air quality that TfL puts out of London air, and it has graduations between red in the middle, which is the most polluted, and then it gets greener as you go out, blue or green. And all of the ULEZ area was classed as perfectly good air. There was no argument, even by the statistics, even by the stats put out by TfL, it was clean. And we know that he tried to influence the Imperial College report on the air quality.
The irony is it's the Conservatives that brought in the Clean Air Act in the 50s, which started to clean the air up.
Well, that's not ironic. That's great.
Public leaders do need to do this.
No,
that's
but
one of the reasons why he's got his knighthood today.
ULEZ was a cash grab. There was no need for it. The air in the tubes, which is where he wants to push us, is appalling. That's where he needs to focus. And, you know, on the charge sheet, I can add Crossrail, 4 years late, £4 billion over budget. TfL, gone bust, had to be rescued by central government.
The Elizabeth line is a triumph.
It was 4 years late.
It's an absolute
and £4 billion over budget under his mayoralty.
It's a wonderful piece of engineering.
TfL went bust and had to be rescued.
Why are you talking London down, Ben?
I'm not...
You are.
He has absolutely...
The Elizabeth line is a fantastic British achievement, and that's on his watch.
I don't dispute the fact that it's terrific having the Elizabeth line. It cost £4 billion more and was 4 years late. That's the criticism I'm making. That is not a success. By any measure, that's a failure. And... There is nothing. Point to one thing, Paul, which Sadiq's done that which in your mind justifies a knighthood, other than being re-elected.
Well, I would also point to his social housing, and he's done quite a lot to get more housing.
Social housing is an utter mess in London.
He's done the best he can. Most of his time as leader of London has been under the Conservatives, don't forget. So talking about crime, it's because the Tories took all the cops off the street. That's why crime's gone up. It's not because of Sadiq Khan. It's because the Tories took our neighbourhood police away from our London neighbourhoods. That's why knife crime's
one of the few duties he has as mayor is having joint responsibility for the Metropolitan Police.
But the money comes from central government.
And he's always out there.
Took the money away from the cops.
He spends his time playing identity politics, banging the drum of DEI.
You can't say that London isn't a diverse city, though, and I think we should welcome the diversity of London. It's rather marvellous.
I do not welcome. It
always has been since the Romans arrived. It's been a diverse city.
I do not
London
welcome.
Specifically.
I do not welcome a mayor who puts out a photograph of a white family says that these people.
Fair, that is true. That is a fact.
That these people do not represent London. What has happened to our capital, where we have a mayor who can put out that kind of effectively racist?
We've had Huguenots, we've had Bangladeshis, we've had the people living in New Malden from Korea, we've had the Arabs up and down the Edgware Road. We've had this wonderful diversity for decades.
I've got no criticism of different ethnicities
Irish
in London.
Kilburn and all the rest of it. Australians in Earl's Court. We've always had diversity.
I've got no criticism of different ethnicities. I've got criticism of playing identity politics.
It's not identity politics.
And playing the race card.
No.
And effectively putting out racist images like I just described. That was racist.
Do you think, Paul, there is an element of people not liking Sadiq Khan and not wanting him to get a knighthood because of his race?
Well, I've only spoken to people who've welcomed it. I mean, I don't know anyone who's saying this is terrible.
You must have seen some of the...
Ben and I in the green room, but apart from that, I think that most people say he's London's leader. Most people, he got elected 3 times.
But why is that? Why is that in itself?
Why are we talking about him at all?
Who cares if you get elected? Does that give you a right to be knighted just to be elected?
I mean, Stephen Fry got a knighthood. He's been in prison, for heaven's sake.
Well,
why are we debating
Ken Livingstone was also
London. We can have that debate.
Ken Livingstone was London mayor before, and he turned down an award because he thought it was mad to accept the award for simply doing his job, for which he said, I'm paid very well and I enjoy it.
The whole question then about political honours. You can have that conversation if you like, whether you should think that people just get an honour for doing public service. I personally would always rather talk about the nurses and the police officers and the firefighters who get awards, because they do, I feel, deserve them. But if you're going to have political honours, then why not someone who's won 3 elections and the biggest mandate in the country?
I don't think winning an election in itself is worthy of an honour of chivalry.
That's right. Sean Bailey's got one for losing.
It's a recognition of an individual's chivalry. I would say.
But it might have been in the medieval time. I don't think it's what it is now.
That's what it is. You're meant. It's for someone who's actually gone beyond their normal. Their normal.
Well, in that case, why didn't David Beckham get one? He should have got one.
Well, I mean, we did have Gareth Southgate one, and
And why not Becks? He should have definitely got one, don't you think?
Gareth Southgate's someone else that hasn't won anything either, is really.
No, he's...
Rewarding failure.
No. I mean, I don't want to get into Gareth Southgate. I don't know enough about it, but I do know about Sadiq Khan, and I would not have given him a knighthood.
And you would?
Of course.
Oh, great indeed. Right, OK, well, what do you think? GBNews.com/your say. Let us know. Should Sadiq Khan have got a knighthood? Are we rewarding failure? Now, we're moving on. New files reveal that Tony Blair opened borders despite warnings that there will be an influx of migrants from Eastern Europe. Just how big of a mistake was that, though?
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did A Christmas Carol change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did, enormously. Before then, people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does 2 things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
you say, becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, keeping me company until 7 o'clock. My wonderful panel, Ben Habib and Paul Richards. Now, we're moving on. Yes, Tony Blair. Newly unsealed official documents show that Tony Blair threw open Britain's borders, we knew this basically, to millions of migrants to inflate economic figures. The former Prime Minister in 2004 granted Eastern Europeans unrestricted access to the UK labour market, despite concern from some of his top ministers. This is despite almost every other EU country at the time implementing controls. And rather than the 13,000 predicted, hundreds of thousands of migrants entering the UK, anti-EU sentiment and fuelled high immigration figures. Was this one of the biggest political blunders of all time? Paul, I mean, it's no shock we knew Tony Blair opened the borders, but it was the fact that some of, his John Prescott, Jack Straw, advising against it at the time. He obviously quite clearly didn't listen to him. So is this a huge political blunder that's led to the migration mess we're in now?
Well, it's fascinating to look back at that time, 20 years on, and these papers reveal there was a row going on inside Cabinet. It was ever thus, of course. That's what Cabinets do. But the government then had economic growth in every single quarter throughout the whole of that period. The people that came, Poland, Czechoslovakia and so on, they worked. I mean, we can all remember them coming and fixing our boilers and looking after our kids. And, they were hard-working people. A lot of them have then gone home again after this period. And the argument within Cabinet was more about, should they get benefits or not? And Blair was saying very clearly, according to these papers, they shouldn't have access to the benefit system and just come over and live on benefits. If they're going to come here, they have to work. And I think history has judged that as being the right decision.
So you don't have a problem with what Tony Blair did back in the day?
Well, I think it's difficult because you think then what happened next was Brexit, which I disagree with, and then, all the arguments ever since. But I think at the time it was the right decision based on the information, and it did lead to economic growth. The economy grew after that period.
Ben, this did ultimately lead to the 2016 Brexit vote, so in theory you might be pleased with what Tony Blair did back in the day as well.
Well, we haven't got Brexit. We haven't left the EU. We've left Northern Ireland behind. We're still hitched at the regulatory hip with the EU. We've got all sorts of other commitments that we've made to them, which we have to adhere to. But the point I want to pick up on is everyone seems to talk about immigration simply through an economic prism, as if everything else is irrelevant. All that matters is the economy. Well, I'll come back to the economy, but the damage that's been done to this country by removing our borders is massive. You cease to be a settled society.
What did the Polish people do to damage Britain? They mended stuff, they looked after our kids, they set up some shops, they were perfectly benign.
I've got nothing against the Poles.
Churches were full of Poles now worshipping in the Catholic churches. What was wrong with that?
I haven't got anything against the Poles. I love the Polish people. I've got business in Poland. But when you take on millions of people into your country as we have done over the last 27 years, started by Tony Blair, by this experiment, when you take that on, you don't just damage, in my view, the economy, and I'll come back to that, you seriously undermine the cultural fabric of the country. And if you don't have a settled culture, and we no longer have a settled culture in this country, we have multicultural silos, all operating independently of each other, all with positive discrimination in their favour against the settled people. The diversity, equity and inclusion, the regulatory framework of DEI, which I've said so many times, coupled with mass immigration that we've had, set off by Tony Blair, has actually destroyed the national fabric of the United Kingdom. That is what we are facing. And if you don't have an integrated culture, you don't have society. It's as simple as that. You don't have a society. You have multiple different communities, and we have ceased to be a nation state. And I couldn't be plainer. If you take your borders down, you remove the barrier that defines you as a nation state. That's what Tony Blair did. He removed the nationhood of the United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom is still a nation state.
No, it isn't.
I don't think Polish people undermine the fabric of the nation.
We are not a nation state.
They added to the fabric of the nation.
Paul, you are absolutely
and our nation
wrong.
There's always been multiple different peoples from all over the world.
Paul,
since the Romans, the Danes,
let me enlighten
Irish,
you.
The
There is a
Jewish people.
Supreme Court.
That's our country.
There is a Supreme Court ruling which adjudicated that the United Kingdom no longer exists, as was established.
It does exist. I'm trying to tell you,
was established by the Acts of Union 1800. I know it because it's a case that I brought against the Northern Ireland Protocol, which actually has put a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We are no longer the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So we do not exist as a nation state.
And that's the Polish people's fault.
And the reason that our governing class was prepared to hand over Northern Ireland to the EU is because they don't have an eye on the nation state of the United Kingdom. They see everything through a technical prism, perhaps economic one, but they don't look at the fundamental importance of being a country. And they are prepared to set that aside. And they do it by taking down the borders. They do it by following European fiscal policy, European laws, European monetary policy. We're going to be signing up our military to the European Defence Union.
But you called for Brexit, and you've got Brexit, and now
we haven't got
it's
Brexit.
not working.
We have not got Brexit.
So are you wrong?
I've just literally explained to you we have not got Brexit. We left Northern Ireland behind.
I think a lot of people think we have had Brexit.
Well, they're
and
wrong.
We are still a nation state.
Anyone who thinks that we have left the European Union,
I'm pretty sure we did. I was there at the time. I kind of remember leaving the EU.
Paul, we have left the institutions of the European Union. We have not left the regulatory framework of the European Union.
Oh dear.
We are absolutely stuck in matters of state aid, competition, employment, environment. Under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, we are committed to staying in the ECHR. People don't know that. Under the trade agreement that Boris Johnson did, we are committed to staying in the ECHR. We are committed to funding European defence weapons development.
Good.
No, it's not good.
We should need more cooperation with the defence.
None of this is good.
If we don't defend Europe, we're going to have Putin walking in and taking over Moldova and Estonia and all the rest of it.
Who would you say, Paul?
Like ninepins it'll go down.
None of this is good.
We don't defend ourselves against the Russians.
I think both the Conservatives and Labour admit that migration is a mess at the moment, that we have lost control.
It's a broken system.
It is a broken system. So who would you say bears most responsibility for that mess?
Well, I think over the last 14 years it's a Conservative government, and I'm sure you'd agree.
Absolutely. The Conservatives have absolutely dropped the ball on migration. And people have to recognise that when you take in, and Paul, I hope you will concede this point, that when you take in people from lots of different cultures at the rate at which we've taken them in, and you combine that with a regulatory framework which has no eye on integration, none, they're not obliged to integrate at all. We celebrate and promote foreign cultures in the United Kingdom at the expense of our own culture. When you do that, you damage the country dramatically, and we have damaged it economically. That policy in 2004 was damaging economically. What we did was take in cheap labour from Eastern Europe. which was damaging to Poland, damaging to Romania, because they had an absence of skilled labour in their countries, bring them here, keep a lid on wages here, effectively remove the requirement for British people to train, for British people to do the jobs, and as a result of 27 years of this kind of policy, we've now got 7.2 million people out of a workforce of 30 million, 7.2 out of 30 million surviving on universal credit. That's the result of unbridled immigration as far as the economy is concerned. A broken labour force, an inability for the United Kingdom actually to function as an independent economy because we have welcomed the world. And it is absolutely appalling, economically and culturally.
I mean, I remember my dad going on about the Poles and the Czechs coming here, taking jobs. The jobs they were taking were flying Spitfires and Hurricanes, and they helped us beat the Nazis.
I love the Poles.
You know, there's no problem with people coming here if they want to settle and work. I would say integration, though. You've got to learn the language. I think that's fair. I think Labour ministers have always said people have to learn English because that is the way to integrate into both the economy and society, and it should. So language lessons should be, you know, there for people that have them. I think particularly women are then often kept in the home, unable to speak English, and there's an issue around access to labour markets.
Do you think they should be forced to learn English?
Well, I think it should be. Why not? It should be something that's offered, and then if you don't take it up, you know, maybe you should have some compulsory English lessons. And Labour ministers have said this and then get denounced for saying it in the past. But I would say certainly language is one of those ways into society.
I think language is such a low bar. I think they should learn Christianity at school. They should sing the national anthem. They should swear allegiance to the king and country.
Who's saying they can't?
All of these things should be a prerequisite to getting British citizenship.
Who's saying that you don't do that?
What?
Who's saying that you
don't? We don't do any of this.
Things?
We practice DEI. We say we respect your religion. We respect your culture.
Different. Hang on.
We respect your religion. We respect your culture. I haven't finished, Paul. We respect your religion. We respect your culture. Moreover, we encourage you to continue to practice your religion, your culture in our country. And also, we will require firms, institutions, educational establishments, the public sector, to give you jobs over and, if necessary, at the expense of those who were already here. That is the legislative framework that we operate in this country.
I think you can have multiple identities. You can consider yourself, you know, whatever it is, either religious or ethnically, you know, from a particular ethnicity, and also British. And you might see yourself in terms of the city you live in as well. And that's how most modern people are. They have multiple identities.
Paul, read just one comment out from Peter. Paul, to you. Paul, you're in denial. Go to a few towns and cities in the UK, Bradford, Sheffield, Stockton, Dewsbury, etc.
I've been to all those places.
They no longer feel British. This is what people are saying.
Well, how are you defining British? Does he mean white?
Well, no, it just said they no longer feel British. There is the British culture.
And actually, Paul, you just hit the nail on the head. You've said, well, define British. It's because Britishness, as we know it, at least as I know it from my childhood, doesn't exist anymore because it's been washed away in a sea of immigration coupled with this legislative framework.
I'm with George Orwell. He says you can love your own country without hating other people.
I don't hate anyone. I love the Poles.
That is my definition of
I love the Poles. I've got many Pakistani friends. My father's Pakistani. I love foreigners. I've got no problem with foreigners. That doesn't mean I want to give up on what being British is.
There's our clip for the social media.
Right, OK, fine, gentlemen, thank you. You're on fire tonight, both of you. New Year's Eve as well. OK, you remember, you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025. Patrick, Bev, Emily, Darren and Ben will all be together for a very special show, GB News New Year's live from 10 p.m. tonight. You don't want to miss it. But we haven't finished here yet, blimey. After the break, public sector workers are taking 3 times as many mental health days as private sector employees. The Tories are urging the government to get a grip. Do you think they should? Come and see you soon.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning very unsettled as we head into the new year. Outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy, particularly across the south with multiple Met Office warnings in force. That's all because low pressure is taking hold of our weather, dragging in some frontal systems, so some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain. Also, we're squeezing the eyes of us with some quite blustery winds as we head into the overnight period. Outbreaks of rain set to linger across parts of Wales, northern England. This could be heavy and persistent at times. Plenty of showers to the north of this falling as snow across parts of Scotland, across hills and also to lower levels, and brings a risk of ice towards the morning too. Driest across the south, where it will be fairly mild overnight, but later on through the day we'll eventually see that rain start to creep in. So for the first day of the new year across Scotland, remaining unsettled, still plenty of showers, these falling as snow at times, particularly across the north, the Northern Isles, for example, too. And it also brings in a risk of ice to start the day. We may see some clearer spells across Northern Ireland, but plenty of showers around northern and western coasts, and a very wet start across central parts of England and Wales, parts of the southwest too. This rain's still heavy and persistent at times, and it will slowly edge its way towards the southeast too. So quite a damp day on offer across parts of the south. To the north of this, we may see some clearer spells, but plenty of showers. Once again, these falling as snow, mainly across hills, but once again, we could see some to lower levels, particularly across parts of Scotland. And it's going to feel very cold here, particularly in the brisk northerly wind, and feeling rather chilly under cloudy skies to the south too. Still very windy across those southern coasts. Heading into Thursday, there will be more sunshine around, but likely to start the day off with a very sharp frost. Still plenty of showers around too, particularly around coastal areas, where once again they could fall as snow, particularly in the north. And as we finish off the week, it's likely to remain cold with a risk of frost and also some ice. That's it from me. Happy New Year.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Kent, the westbound M20 has a lane closed after a breakdown between junction 3 at the M26 and junction 2 at Rootham. In Dorchester, the A35 currently looking very busy in both directions. Follows an accident just near to the West Stafford turnoff at the A352. In Cheshire, the northbound M6, 2 lanes closed, long delays after an overturned lorry between junction 17 at Sandbach and 18 at Holmes Chapel. Forward in Lancashire, the A6 currently blocked both ways after an accident just near to Brookside Road. And in Glasgow, the eastbound M8 looking busy after an earlier breakdown just near to junction 19 at Anston Cross. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. Keeping me company until 7 is Ben Habib and Paul Richards. And it's already been very, very feisty indeed. And it's about to get even more so, I'm guessing. New analysis has found that public sector workers are 3 times more likely to take mental health sick days than those in the private sector. According to the Office for National Statistics, in 2022, 18.5 million days were lost because of mental health issues, a rise of more than 2 million compared with 2020. Meanwhile, a government document shows ministers are considering giving public sector employees a pay rise in return for a smaller pension later on. This comes as a means to increase productivity and avoid further pay disputes. So tonight we're asking, are public sector workers too fragile? Controversial way of framing it. Let's come to you first on this one, Paul. I mean, are they, should we be tougher on the public sector? I mean, there's a lot of them. They've got gold-plated pensions. Some of them are earning a lot of money, and they take a lot of time off sick.
I think
what's going on here? Why
there is a mental health crisis in the United Kingdom.
Why is it
I don't think it's unique to the public sector. I think people in the private sector, people working 3 jobs for minimum wage, are also stressed, and they get depressed and they get anxious as well.
But they don't take as much time off sick.
And maybe they can't because they haven't got as well organised workplaces as people in the public sector. But you look at nurses, teachers, they are one off their feet. They do, especially in the NHS, have an awful lot of stress and a lot of conditions which none of us would want to work in. I mean, here they are, we're all thinking about what we're going to be doing later on. There's people across the country who are working in the public sector right now, firefighters, police officers and nurses and so on.
There are lots of people working in the private sector as well.
And there are, yes, people in pubs and restaurants and so on. But the point is that this mental health crisis is genuine. It's not because they're being snowflakes. It's because we have underfunded mental health services. And it's ridiculous that, if you have a serious disease, let's say cancer, of course you'll get treatment as fast as you can. If you've got a mental health condition, it has to wait for it to become an acute condition before you can even see a specialist. If you've got a young person with a mental health condition, they may have to travel miles and wait years, so things just get worse and worse. And we've just underfunded this for decades in this country.
Yeah, well, I think we'll all admit there is a problem with the mental health funding in this country, and it is something that's taken seriously. But why, Ben, is it affecting those in the public sector more than in the private sector?
Well, the public sector are, frankly, mollycoddled. The public sector parts of the public sector benefited from the working time directive of the EU. Most private sector could opt out of it. This government is now expanding that so that the working time directive, and we're not even part of the EU, but they're still using EU directives. They're going to expand that and give that over to the public sector. The public sector will also have the right to work from home. I know that many people in the public sector now work from abroad, and they're given permission to work from abroad while they're on holiday, effectively, as far as I see it. And, of course, we have far too many people in the public sector. Public sector is much bigger than it should be.
We need the state. Then? Police,
we need
nurses.
We need the state. The civil service, for a start. The state needs to be pared back, and the private sector needs to be championed. I don't agree that we have a mental health crisis. What we've got is 3 million people claiming benefits and not looking for jobs and citing mental health issues as a reason for not looking for a job. There were no people with mental health issues on universal credit making those claims 5 years ago. It's a new phenomena. And it is because people are mollycoddled, because benefits are out of control, and because actually staying on benefits now is a career choice. What you can get on benefits if you play the system correctly, effectively, is pretty close to the net median wage. It doesn't quite get there, but it's pretty close to the net median wage after taxes. And this is all symptomatic of a state that has taken far too much control, has far too much of our cash, and is spending it badly. And it's also partly to do with immigration, because the rampant immigration, as I mentioned in the last segment, has kept a lid on wages. So there's no gap between benefits and the median wage. Our median wage in this country hasn't risen in the last 10 years. It's still hanging around £33,000 per annum. We're not growing as a country. We're all getting poorer as a country. What we've got to do is fix our labour markets, reduce benefits, reward people for working, don't tax them as highly as we're taxing them, so they can keep more of their money, so they can be aspirational, so they can get up and want to work. If you do all those things, you will fix the labour market automatically, and you will see the mental health issues abate dramatically.
I disagree. I think there's families watching this who have members who are in mental health crisis, who will tell you that all they need is to see a specialist sooner and nearer, and they get the treatment they need upstream, not waiting for it to get worse and worse and worse.
No, there will be lots of people like that. The point of this is...
You need parity between physical and mental health within the National Health Service.
3 million people on universal credit not looking for a job, citing mental health issues.
But making them poorer doesn't make them better.
No. What I'm saying is a lot of them don't have mental health issues. Let's just be blunt about it. Some do. Of course, there are many people who have genuine mental health issues, and they must have the full protection of our welfare state.
And I think just picking that point up, I think the reason there are more of these people now is because we're more open about mental health than we were 30 years ago. We've broken the taboo. But people now are more aware, and they know more about their own conditions than they were before.
I mean, we certainly, obviously, should be. No one is downplaying mental health issues. That they are appalling. We do need better treatment for them.
Yes.
But the problem is here, there is a divide between people in the public sector feeling they can take more time off than people in the private sector.
Well, they've probably got better workplace conditions and better unions. That's why. It's not because they're mollycoddled. And in fact, you talk to a nurse. Would a nurse say they were mollycoddled in their jobs?
When employers' national insurance was put up by the Chancellor a couple of months ago, it only affected the private sector, not the public sector. She targeted the private sector. So you can't tell me the public sector's not mollycoddled. They've been protected. Their salaries have been protected. When they talk about giving them higher salaries now and taking away their pension in the future, do you really think they're going to take their pension away? Of course not.
Did wonder whether both things might actually happen.
I think, just on that, though, isn't that a really interesting idea? Because if people do have more money up front, then they'll be able to buy, deposits for houses, for example. They'll be able to spend more money in the community. Actually, I think that's an interesting idea. I only came across it today for the first time. But it sounds to me like quite a clever way of reallocating the resources so we get some growth in the economy.
Except it won't work that way. When they come to being retired, there will be a backlash and the government will bend over again and we will be all poorer as a result.
The government's just said no to the WASPy women, so maybe they won't bend over.
Yeah, well, they do seem to have a problem with pensioners, don't they? And the women,
they vote certainly. Tory. That's the problem.
So, I mean, If we carry on at this rate, the sickness and disability benefits will top 100 billion a year by 2030. We just can't afford this, Paul. Something's got to change. We can't carry on like we are.
People back to work. That's the answer. Roots back into work. And the issue is, of course,
especially the public
skills.
Service.
Well, I think we need to look at apprenticeships and skills and all these jobs that will exist in the future, the jobs that won't exist in the future too. Are we training people for jobs that aren't going to even be there in 10 years' time, and reimagine the whole workforce?
Well, we've got to stop.
But work is the magic bullet. I'm not suggesting people shouldn't be working. I'm Labour Party. Clues in the name. People should be working.
Let's put this bluntly, Paul. Do you believe that people in the public sector feel more able to swing the lead than people in the private sector?
No, I reject that 100%. I don't think that's the case at all.
Ben?
I think the public sector's mollycoddled. I mean, it's the only way to look at it. You look at what the government's done. It gave them all stonking salary increases and then took the winter fuel allowance away from pensioners.
Exactly, which is,
You know, well, I'm sorry. I've got no other way to put it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's, as I say, what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. So many of you getting in touch. Lots of love in the room for Ben, as always. Not so much, Paul, sorry.
Well, that's my role.
It's New Year.
Paul, I love you.
Well, thank you. There's a little bit of love.
It's New Year, let's all have a hug. OK, right, with 2025 just around the corner, indeed in a few hours. Today at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very special message.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Indeed, thank you. Now, coming up, what political fireworks await us in 2025 and what New Year's resolutions do my panel have, if any? See you soon.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Here's your GB News winter sun forecast for the first day of 2025, and there will actually be some decent sunshine around, and with that, temperatures for some, including Madeira, actually a few degrees above average. A different story for Barcelona, largely dry, but temperatures, if anything, slightly below what you'd expect, but plenty of dry weather as we head further east, and for places such as Santorini here as well, temperatures a little bit on the mild side. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoss Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by Yoz?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so... yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark, and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
How did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you a way.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun. Wow. Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest, to be able to say that modelling is my full-time
Yeah.
job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not.
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face. Ready? 3. I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all like contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
this
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, 2024 was a year of spectacular success for Labour, but their landslide general election really feels like it was in another age, doesn't it? As we enter 2025, we find ourselves equipped with a striking mix of ingredients: a stagnant economy, a restless electorate, and Reform UK snapping at the heels of both main parties. And it's just over 2 weeks we'll see the inauguration of Donald Trump. This comes against an already unpredictable international backdrop from the Ukraine to the Middle East. Just what political fireworks can we expect in the new year? Ben and Paul are still with me. They haven't killed one another, I know, but it is New Year's Eve, so they're not going to. OK, crystal balls out, gentlemen. Political fireworks for the new year. Ben, what do you think we're going to see happen?
So I think there are two major changes that we're going to experience in 2025, which are unavoidable, amongst perhaps others. But these two, I think, are significant. The first is the Trump presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And
good thing, bad thing?
Everything he says that he's going to do for the United States is what I would wish him to do for his country, and I wish our political leadership would do the same for the United Kingdom. Strong borders, deregulate, ditch net zero, cut taxes, America first, and including imposing tariffs on imports. Free trade across the globe to the great detriment of Western countries.
What about over here?
And what I want from Trump is tough love on Starmer. I want him to absolutely show Starmer the way, not by mollycoddling Starmer or being nice to Starmer, but by challenging the United Kingdom to play its part on the global stage in the way that Trump would wish us to do it. That's the first thing, and I think he will do that. And the second thing is we're going to have serious economic challenges in the UK because the budget that Rachel Reeves produced, together combined with all the increased regulations that the Labour Party are bringing in, which I can touch on if you like, but there's this massive wave of new regulations coming.
No, don't go into detail now. It's
which are going to damage. And so we're going to see recession. We're going to see a weakening pound. We're going to see stubbornly high inflation, and we're going to see, I think, possibly a sovereign debt crisis where the government can't fund its own needs.
All right, OK, well, I love the voice of optimism. Paul, are you going to be a bit more happy New Year?
I am rather. I mean, I think the tariffs issue is very damaging. I think it's going to cost British jobs. So I really hope the Labour government can negotiate with the Americans and not have these punitive tariffs on our trade, because that will cost us jobs in the UK. I hope we see growth in the economy, and I don't think we'll see a recession. So I am optimistic on the economy. I think actually some of the measures we put in place, particularly reforming the planning laws, will get growth in the economy. The most important thing geopolitically, though, is that Ukraine has to win that war against Putin, because if Putin wins, that will affect all of our nations for decades to come. OK, what about the politics in this country? Are Reform going to carry on growing in strength and become the main opposition party?
The zeitgeist, the political winds are completely in their sails. And, of course, they're nipping at Labour's heels. But the Conservative Party is looking very, very weak at the moment. And Kemi needs to, if she wants to save the Conservative Party, she needs to come out punching from the what's Monday next week, 4th of January or whatever it is.
God knows, I've got no idea what day
she's got to come out 5th of January. She's got to come out punching. Otherwise, I think...
Is she capable of that, though? I mean, serious question. I think she's out of her depth, and I think that she's only been in for a few weeks, I know, but she's not doing the job.
Do you know something interesting? So many times in my life, I have worked with people who I thought were not capable of taking on senior positions, but when you put them in a senior position, they suddenly rise to the task.
But sometimes people go the other way, don't they?
Sometimes people go the other way.
She might be in that camp, I think.
The proof of the pudding remains in the eating.
We'll be
and
fair.
we haven't really seen Kemi in action
fair
yet,
to Kemi for now.
Yeah.
How about Keir Starmer? Do you think he's doing a good job? Do you think he's going to have a happy New Year?
He's doing the job. Well, he won't have a happy New Year for the personal reasons we all understand. But, I mean, he is doing the job he was elected to do by millions of British people back in July, and that's about getting growth in the economy and reforming the public services. So let's get on with that.
OK, right, now let's get personal, boys.
Any more personal?
Very personal, yeah. Paul, your personal New Year's resolution?
Well, 2 years ago, I decided to lose weight, and I was 10 stone heavier than I am now.
Wow.
And I've lost 10 stone, but as people who have lost weight will tell you, it's all about the maintenance and then keeping it off. So what my New Year resolution is I'm doing a marathon walk at the end of January. I'm keeping my weight down. I'm eating healthily and keeping going so that at the end of this year, I'll still be the same weight as I am now.
Brilliant.
So there we are. That's
well
mine.
done. Absolutely well done. You. How about you, Ben?
I'm going to sound really boring, but I don't do New Year's resolutions, I'm afraid. I just think, you've got to just live. Every day's a new day. I get up in the morning, I think, what am I going to do today? And that's what comes back to what I was saying earlier about aspiration. I'm very lucky. I love getting up in the morning and love going to work and love swinging the bat and doing whatever I do. And I hope that this is my New Year's wish, that all of the United Kingdom can live an aspirational 2025, no matter how challenging it is.
Brilliant. OK, and one final, very quick, one-word answer. That mythical black hole that we all keep talking about, who is the one person you'd like to push in it? Ben?
Oh, my God. Just one?
Just one.
Oh, Keir Starmer.
OK.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump? It's our black hole. What about a British person?
Nah, I think we'll, let's just wish Happy New Year to all.
OK. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year.
Now, before we go, though, remember you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025. Patrick, Bev, Emily, Darren and Ben will be all together for a very special show. GB News New Year's Live from 10 p.m. tonight. Don't miss it. Just thank you from us and have a very, very happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you on the other side. Cheers.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning very unsettled as we head into the new year. Outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy, particularly across the south with multiple Met Office warnings in force. That's all because low pressure is taking hold of our weather, dragging in some frontal systems, so some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain. Also, we're squeezing the eyes of us with some quite blustery winds as we head into the overnight period. Outbreaks of rain set to linger across parts of Wales, northern England. This could be heavy and persistent at times. Plenty of showers to the north of this falling as snow across parts of Scotland, across hills and also to lower levels, and brings a risk of ice towards the morning too. Driest across the south where it will be fairly mild overnight, but later on through the day we'll eventually see that rain start to creep in. So for the first day of the new year across Scotland, remaining unsettled, still plenty of showers, these falling as snow at times, particularly across the north, the Northern Isles, for example, too. And it also brings in a risk of ice to start the day. We may see some clear